I think we're almost running out of time. And in fact, you speak like English naturally, like you're really you have a high level of English. Say something to me in Portuguese. Are you really
Tá,
Brazilian?
tá. Eu vou falar um pouquinho em português, mas é que eu nasci aqui, né? Então, é meio que
Yeah.
minha língua materna também.
Have you ever lived in USA or?
I lived there I mean, so my parents are American, and we would go and come back every 2 years. But then I think from 2021 to the middle of 2022, I lived in the US for about a year and a half. And then I came down to Brazil, got married, and so I'm living here now with my wife.
Oh, that's cool. She's Brazilian, right?
Yeah. So we
Oh,
actually met in high school.
well, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. And your parents, they're living like in USA?
No, both my parents also live here in
Yeah.
Brazil.
Oh, that's cool. In fact, like I'd like to live abroad, maybe in the future. But I started to learn English because of a girl, so it kind of has something to do.
And if you could live anywhere, where would you want to live?
So I'm still thinking. I love soccer, so probably to a place where soccer is like for example, I'd like here in Brazil. I'd like to live in São Paulo because like we've got like four biggest team over there. But like in probably I'd like to go to Europe, to it's only because of football.
Okay. And who is your favorite team?
São Paulo. São
Okay.
Paulo, and I'm pretty happy. Like yesterday, we won the Super Cup, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
And
And I heard
it,
that. So I'm not really a big fan of soccer, but my wife is. And I heard that Inter also had a pretty good game.
but you never really like watch anything related to football.
Personally, I don't. When I'm with my wife and she brings her friends over, I mean, when we have a party, I'll sit down with the people, but I don't know. I'm not that into football. I will
I
say,
see, I see, I
or
see.
soccer, right? So in the
Yeah,
U.S. we call it soccer.
yeah, I know. It's in fact in Canada too. I just found out like 3 years ago when I had a lesson here on Cambly.
Yeah.
I didn't
And
know that.
I never correct my students. I only teach the other way, right? Because the truth is, if you go to any European country, they're going to call it football. They won't call it soccer.
Yeah,
So
I
you're
know the teachers from England that I talked. All of them said like, "Oh, I was watching like football, something like that." The only ones that corrected me, it was the ones from USA. They said, "Oh, it's soccer."
Oh no, I always make it a point to tell my students that I'm not correcting them. I'm just telling them the different way to say it. Because the thing is, if I say football, you're going to understand football, right? But if
Yeah,
I say soccer and you don't know what soccer is, then that might make it. So I always, you know, at least so that if you go to the US or somewhere, that you know that when they say soccer, they mean football. And when they say football, they mean like football
yeah,
americano.
yeah, I know. So probably you speak like Portuguese perfectly since you grew up bilingual. So what would you say is the best way to someone who like is learning English right now to kind of improve their English, in a easy
So
way?
the best thing I would suggest, okay, is to immerse yourself in the language, right? And so I know that sounds hard in our day to day where, you know, a lot of times we don't have a lot of free time. And I don't want to suggest something as basic as just putting your phone in English, right? Although that is a good tip.
Yeah,
But something that you can do as well is just make sure that when you watch something, watch in English. When you read something, try to read in English. When you listen to music, try to listen to some music in English. And I'm saying this like you don't need to switch everything in your life now has to be English. That's not it. But it's because what made me grow up bilingual is the contact with both languages, right?
I see.
And the truth is, most people don't have the opportunity to completely immerse themselves in the language by going to another country. So the best way that you can do that is coming here on Cambly, having conversation with native tutors, and then having as much contact with the English language as possible. And now, if you don't work in a way that that's possible, right? Like a lot of times people at your company may not speak English. So maybe it's not going to be your workplace, but maybe you could turn your home into like an English sanctuary, like a place that you can go to learn. And learning is a lot more than just sitting down writing words, but it's actively searching to use the language, you know?
Yeah, I see. So that's something that I did in the at the very beginning. I think I totally agree. Emotion, like it's the at least for me, it's the most important thing. That's what I did. I started to learn in 2017, and I started for 2 years in a row without even missing one day. And I did a lot of like listening every single day as much as possible. And at the very beginning, I didn't have a job. I didn't have a lot of errands to run, so I had a lot of free time. So I was like studying 8 hours per day, 10 hours per day, and of course that wasn't boring. When I think it's important when you're learning, you don't get tired of the language. So I try to do as much as listening as possible. I immersed myself in the language, and after these 2 years, I was like understanding a lot. My listening was pretty good, and in fact, after these 2 years, I stopped and I got back, stopped again, over and over again, until 2022. I decided to really, really take English seriously, and today I think it's the day 486 that I've been studying English in a row again.
Wow.
And the app that I use, I can kind of track the progress. And just inside the app, I did almost 300 hours of listening. So I did a lot of listening. I still do, but right now I'm more focused on speaking. This year I really
Oh,
am like speaking a lot.
perfect. And one of the things that I can recommend in regards to speaking, right? It's here on Cambly. And one of the things that I do, and I do this both in Cambly and in my private school, but I get articles, have my students read them, and then in that article, I talk about pronunciation, the meaning of some expressions. And one of the things that for me is the most important thing to understand English is remembering that different than Portuguese, English is a context based language.
Yeah, it is. I think we're almost running out of time. And in fact, you speak like English naturally, like you have a high level of English. Say something to me in Portuguese. Are you really
Tá,
Brazilian?
tá. Eu vou falar um pouquinho em português, mas é que eu nasci aqui, né? Então, é meio que
Yeah,
minha língua materna também.
but you sound more fluent in English than Portuguese. You sound like
Well,
you have
it,
an
it,
accent.